Hello everybody and welcome to another Arkham Horror video here at Playing Board Games. I'm Justin and today I'm here to talk about parallel investigators and which ones should I print and play. You might have already done this, you might have already been playing a bunch digitally, you might have just cut them out yourself, but I wanted to make a video now that there's 10 of them to rank the order in which I would recommend if you can only print a limited amount of them. If you don't know what a parallel investigator is, a parallel investigator is an alternative version of an existing investigator released in official product. These investigators are available for free on Fantasy Flight Games' website. So if you're just printing it with paper, because they're very easy to print on a printer and sleeve them, some players get their parallel investigators professionally printed. This is not a cheap thing to do. You could also print on a higher quality cardstock, but a lot of people go through things like Make Playing Cards or Printer Studio or a service like that to print these cards, and that is actually not a cheap thing to do. So what I'm doing here is I'm giving a ranking of the parallel investigators and which ones are most worth printing if you have a limited budget. Keep in mind that this is just my own opinions on this. It doesn't actually, there's no official ranking to this. This is just what I think and what my recommendations were if you were looking at checking it out and which ones you'd probably get the most bang for your buck with, or which ones you can also look at this list as which ones you should try first if you have not tried a parallel investigator. So with all that said and done, why don't we dive in and check out the number 10 on our list, which is my lowest recommendation, which is Parallel Daisy Walker. So, she has 1 brain, 5 book, 2 fist, 2 foot. Her ability is you get +1 brain and +1 sanity for each tome asset you control. Lightning Bolt, 1 at a time, resolve an action ability on each tome asset you control, ignoring their action ability cost. Limit once per game. Her deck building is Tome 0 to 5, Seeker 0 to 3, Neutral 0 to 5, and up to 5 other level 0 Guardian and or Mystic cards to round out her deck. So, a positive, as you can see, just if you want to just skip through, you can check it out. I have a positive or negative listed for each of them. A positive for Parallel Daisy Walker is that she has signatures that are really fun to play with. Her signatures are actually what I play with whenever I'm playing regular Daisy now. So the advanced versions, you can include them in your deck. If you include one advanced, you have to include the other. The signature usually is stronger, and for the downside of that, the weakness usually hits harder, or in some cases, hits a little bit differently. So I use this for regular Daisy, because you're allowed to do that, which is pretty fun. So the new Daisy's tote bag is you have 2 additional hand slots which can only be used to hold a tome asset, but as a reaction, when you play a tome asset during your turn, you can exhaust Daisy's tote bag and that asset gains fast. That's really nice. It kind of makes up for her, the parallel version lacking in action, which we're going to get to when we get to the negatives. The Necronomicon, it's a different version where the Elder Sign now doesn't treat itself as an autofail. Instead, it treats itself as the Cultist, Tablet, and Squid, which is both fun, exciting, and also scary, which is really fun to play with, so it's why I look at her. Parallel Daisy is probably best known for she can build a fun deck with Geared Up. Notably, if you play with Taboo, this was made worse, which is why I'm giving it a plus and a negative. Because while Geared Up is still playable, some people, myself included, don't really find that it's worth the risk, because the high is not as high as it was before. So that's kind of the issue with this and why it's a plus and negative. If you play without Taboo, it's a very fun deck that you can do with Geared Up and take advantage of things like Backpack and Schaffners to take advantage of. Because she has the level 0 Guardian cards, she can just include Geared Up in her opening thing. Another negative, and probably the biggest negative for Parallel Daisy Walker, is she doesn't really have a relevant ability during a scenario. We play these investigators to play the investigators because they're fun and they have abilities that we can do things with. And her ability doesn't really do that, right? It kind of just, it scales your brain and your sanity, which kind of is surprisingly counterintuitive. Her ability is not that great. If you think about regular Daisy, if she activates a book every turn and there's 13 turns in the game, you're getting 13 actions out of this. So in order to match that with the 1 at a time resolve an action ability on each tome asset you control, you have to hit that sort of level to it again, which is just not feasible. So you kind of just don't have an action with Parallel Daisy Walker, which is why she is my number 10 most recommended, or least recommended. She's like the one that I recommend the least to check out and print if you were going to be printing. Up next, in number 9, we got Parallel Wendy Adams. So with this one, there's a lot of text here. We're going to kind of just sum it up. We're just going to kind of go through it. She has add Tidal Memento to your deck. Okay, we're going to get back to that. As a reaction, after you successfully evade a non-elite enemy, seal either one Bless or one Curse token from the Chaos Bag, or any Bless or Curse tokens revealed from the Chaos Bag during this test on that enemy. As an Elder Stone effect, +2, search the Chaos Bag for up to 2 Bless or Curse tokens and reveal them, ignoring their effects. The Tidal Memento is as a reaction when an enemy with a Ready or Doom would be placed on it, release a Bless or Curse token, seal that enemy, and cancel that effect. As a reaction as well, during a skill test you're performing, when a Chaos token would be revealed from the Chaos Bag, resolve a Bless or Curse token sealed on an enemy instead. Her deck building is also pretty wild. She has a deck size of 30, and at deck creation you choose either Blessed, Cursed, or both. If you choose both, you gain +5 deck size. She can have Survivor 0-5, Neutral 0-5, and cards of your chosen traits 0-5, which means that you can have a 35 size deck which has both Blessed and Cursed cards in it. Parallel Wendy Adams, her biggest plus is that she has a wide card pool that can be really fun to build with. Before Hemlock Vale, before Kohaku came in and started doing his thing, Wendy Adams was kind of like the Blessed Cursed Investigator because she could use both Blessed and Cursed tokens. So there's a lot of different things you can do. You can also build just Blessed or just Cursed, right? You can kind of like choose what you want. But that's generally just there's a lot of options that you can go with there, and it's a very wide pool that you can explore. A negative is that she has an extra card to continue on with the Investigator ability. This is going to be something that is actually quite common with Parallel Investigators. It's going to be something we're going to touch on again. But basically, like, they're a little bit more complicated than what you can print in an actual official release. This has fans, this has detractors. I don't personally like Parallel Wendy Adams' design. I think it's just a little bit clunky and kind of like doesn't really actually do too much when you can just do like other things slightly better. So that's why she's sitting at number 9, and that's also kind of why she has this other negative, which is gameplay loop doesn't feel too exciting for me personally, and is outclassed by Kohaku. I think Kohaku explores this exact same thing of Blessed and Cursed much more fun and much more elegantly than Wendy Adams does, because he has his Curse and Bless generation built into his character kit, and he also has a payoff that isn't relied on other things to get there. So that's why I think that if this was earlier, maybe she would be higher, but now that Hemlock's out, Parallel Wendy Adams doesn't really move the needle for me. Let's go on to our number 8, which is Parallel Rex Murphy. So this is the most recent one. So this was the last one released in the current cycle of Parallel Investigators. They, as far as I know, they have said there are going to be more Parallel Investigators, so we can look forward to that. I do enjoy them. It's a fun little twist on investigators that exist. Parallel Rex Murphy, 3-4-2-3, as a reaction, when you would either place one of your clues on your location or add 2 curse to the Chaos Bag, do the other instead. So an example is Faustian Bargain, which is gain 5 resources, put 2 curse tokens into the bag. Instead, it's gain 5 resources, put a clue down on your location. You can change it up, and vice versa. His Elder Sign effect is +2 for each curse token revealed during this test. Draw 1 card for each curse token revealed during this test. His deck size is 30. He has Seeker 0-3, Cursed and Gambit 0-4, Neutral level 0-5, and up to 5 of their Rogue cards level 0. Notably, he can't run Fortune or Blessed cards unless they are also Cursed. A positive for Parallel Rex Murphy, and like, honestly, even though like you might be thinking, Parallel Rex Murphy is interesting, he's only number 8, I do honestly think that after this point, I think there's a good reason to play all the remaining Parallel Investigators for me personally. It's just where they fall in this ranking has left Parallel Rex Murphy at number 8. So Parallel Rex, he explores both Curse and Clue Drop in an interesting way. Clue Drop got some juice in Scarlet Keys, but there wasn't really an investigator that can like really take advantage of it, and Parallel Rex Murphy is the kind of guy who can do that. I'm going to just jump to the negative, which is at the bottom of this list here. However, you may feel a little trapped into a specific deck when building Rex Murphy. Is Parallel Rex going to have a wide pool that we can explore, like with a variety of options to get there? That, in my opinion, remains to be seen. I think there's some cool things you can do with Parallel Rex Murphy, but then I think once you do those cool things, you're kind of just like, I've done it, and I don't really feel inspired to do it again. That's at least how I feel with Parallel Rex Murphy. I've playtested him, I've figured it out, and I was just like, okay, I get it, but I don't really want to get it more, if that makes sense. His signatures are a nice change to both Parallel and regular Rex. Just like Parallel Daisy, I really like what the signatures do. So the Search for the Truth can now, you can either, for each clue, you can either draw a card or place that clue on your location to return any card from your discard pile to your hand. Recursion is very powerful. And the new Rex's Curse, instead of putting the token back in when you pass, you instead just reveal an additional token. If it causes you to fail, you shuffle it into your deck. These are probably something that I'm going to include in all my Rex Murphys going forward, just because the new Rex's Curse is a lot easier to play with. So I think like the problem with Parallel Rex Murphy and why he's at number 8 is that he's seems like a good investigator, but he's kind of just there. You know, there's no like hook that makes him particularly interesting, and he doesn't really change the game in the way other investigators that we're going to see further up on this list do. All right, number 7, we got Parallel Zoey Samaras. So like Rex, she kind of lives in a similar box where it's a cool thing to do, but it's kind of just... it's missing that spice, that some of the future ones on this list are going to have. So, Parallel Zoey, 4/2/4/2. After you deal 1 or more damage to an enemy, add 1 Blessed token to the Chaos Bag, limit once per phase. As the landing board, before you reveal tokens for an attack, remove 3 Blessed tokens from the bag. This attack deals +1 damage, which is really nice. It's a Vicious Blow. A Vicious Blow is really sweet. And also, in the first point, she's very fun to play because she provides an interesting gameplay puzzle. What I mean by that is that her ability is limit once per phase, so now you're going to start asking yourself, what can I do to get that ability to trigger in phases outside of the Investigator phase, which I think is really fun for Zoey. Her deck building is Guardian 0-3, Blessed and Charm 0-4, Neutral 0-5, and up to 5 other Mystic cards level 0. Like Parallel Rex, I didn't mention it for him, but it's a very similar point to him that I'm just going to lump onto the previous one. Dunnage Investigators are very improved by the new backside, which means that you can just play traditional. So that's something you can do with Parallel Investigators if you did not know. You can swap it any way you want. You can do regular, so regular back. You can do parallel front, parallel back. You can do parallel front, regular back. You can do regular front, parallel back. So there's different ways that you can make this work. Luckily, you don't need to print all those cards if you do print them. You can just like use the front and then like refer to the back that you are going to be using when the time comes if it's not the same as the card that you are actually using. So the thing that's really nice about both Parallel Zoey and Parallel Rex is that it opens up that kind of thing for you to play with, which is really nice. However, one thing that I actually found with Zoey is that her deck building is actually more restrictive than I thought it was going to be. She's missing just a little bit of something that every time I'm building her, I'm just like, I kind of wish it was just regular Zoey. There's some fun things you can do, but they kind of end up like feeling very similar, and like especially because like she feels that Guardian 0-3 a lot. And yes, she can do Blessed as Charm 0-4, but like a Parallel Roland, who we're going to be talking about in a bit, she kind of is like missing that little bit that really I think opens up her deck building a little bit. Notably as well, she does get much better with Hemlock Veil, so if you don't have Hemlock Veil, you're probably going to feel like Zoey's lacking. Same with Innsmouth Conspiracy. You need Blessed tokens. Same with Rex to like kind of make this really pop off. Okay, next up on our list, number 6, we got Parallel Jim Culver. So this guy, you can see this MFer has a lot of cards. So let's kind of go through it piece by piece. Jim Culver's front side for the Parallel 4/3/3/2 is a reaction. After you reveal 1 or more Skull or Curse tokens during a skill test you're performing, replenish 1 charge on an asset you control, limit once per round. Elder Sound Effect +2, you may treat this token as if it was a Skull or Curse instead. Okay, this is a new Jim. You can play with Skulls or curse tokens to replenish charges. Neat. However, his parallel back gets funky. So it's Mystic cards 0 to 3, Spell and Curse 0 to 4, Neutral 0 to 5, and up to 5 Survivor cards level 0. You also must build something called the Spirit deck, which is where the Beyond comes in. So you shuffle the Spirit deck separately from your deck and place it next to the Beyond asset face down. This may deck be upgraded separately using your unspent experience. So it's ally assets. You need 9 different ally assets from any class level 0 to 2 and a Vengeful Shade. The Beyond is each spirit attached to the Beyond loses all printed traits and gains the Geist trait. When damage and horror will be placed on an attached spirit, it must be placed on Jim Culver instead. When your turn begins, you attach the top card of the spirit's deck to the Beyond. If it is a spirit, if 4 more spirits are attached, flip this card and resolve its text. Then, one at a time, for each non-weakness spirit attached, you have to reveal a token, and they have different effects depending on the token that was revealed. The Vengeful Shade is a weakness in the deck, which is you may fight or evade this enemy while it's attached to the Beyond. If you succeed, discard it. When you attach a spirit to the Beyond via its forced effect, it attacks you even if it is not at your location. So, the big positive for Jim is that it's a very unique mechanics that have a large variety of different builds. Because you get to play with 9 different ally assets, you can explore your collection in a large variety of ways to really get a lot of juice out of Parallel Jim Culver. He also works really well when it comes to trading the fronts and backs depending on what you want to be doing. So you could do like Parallel Jim front, regular back. You can do regular front, parallel back. Because they're actually like 2 investigators kind of like stapled together, you can split the Parallel Jim as you want and get the Parallel Jim that you want to play with. However, with that said, he's kind of 2 investigators stapled together. So there's a lot going on with Parallel Jim Culver, and because of that, there can be a lot to keep track of when you are playing Jim. You're going to have like a second hand of cards, which are your allies and attached to the Beyond. That's just going to be another thing that you can manage. Notably as well, his Advanced Final Rhapsody does hit a lot harder, so just something to be aware of if you do want to check this one out. I do really enjoy playing and building with Parallel Jim Culver, but I also respect that he is a lot, so that's why he is number 6 on this list. Let's go to number 5, which is Parallel Monterey Jack. Look at all this dead space on the screen now with all those cards gone. So, Parallel Monterey Jack 1425 is a reaction after you discover the last clue of your location, search the top X cards of your deck for a charm or relic asset and play it, reducing its cost by X. X is the printed shroud of your location, shuffle your deck. His Elder Sound effect is +1, gain 1 resource for each charm asset and each relic asset you control. His deck building size is 30. He gets Rogue 0 to 3, Charm and Relic 0 to 4, Neutral up 0 to 5, and up to 5 other secret cards level 0. So this guy's actually pretty basic, right? Like, he's pretty simple. His ability is super easy to grok and understand. It tells you exactly what you need to be doing. So that's where I actually come with his negative. We're going to talk about that first. Is that his ability may feel lackluster, and it may place you in a deck building box. Because you're going to want to be triggering his ability, you're going to need to play Charms and Relics, but you also don't want those Charms and Relics in your hands. You kind of see the issue here. And then you're going to whiff a lot more than you hit, because most Shrouds are 2 to 3. You're going to hit the occasional 4, but it's still one of those things that you are going to whiff more than you want, so his ability might feel a little bit lackluster. However, with that said, his new deck building is very fun to mix and match with the Edge of the Earth Monterey Jack. The Edge of the Earth investigators have very strange deck building where they actually upgrade out of their starting color. So Monterey Jack is a rogue that upgrades into Seeker. That's good, but it also is sometimes a little bit frustrating because you kind of have a what if. And what this new Parallel Monterey Jack does, and what I'm hoping and optimistic for the other parallel versions of these Edge of the Earth investigators one day, fingers crossed, is that this gives you something you can explore. So you can play regular Monterey Jack front with this parallel back, which is really good because now you can play rogue cards 0 to 3. You can explore with Charm and Relic. It kind of just opens up Monterey Jack completely in a way that he previously was unable to. So I think that's why Parallel Monterey Jack, even though his ability is kind of a little bit lackluster in practice, I think that just him as a whole is a very exciting thing, so that's why he made the number 5 investigator on my list. His new signature whip is also a very powerful card to play with. So now you get to attack using foot instead of fist. You get +2 skill bar to this attack. If it succeeds, you may exhaust Trusty Bullwhip to deal +1 damage to the attack and automatically evade the attacked enemy. You might be saying, hey, that's really powerful. And it is, but I mean, I also think that signature assets should be pretty powerful. This is probably another card that I would definitely try to just consider always running in Monterey Jack. So I'm going to be looking at printing him in the future for myself. All right, next one on the list, we're going to go to our number 4, which is Parallel Roland Panks. Wow. So, a lot of cards here as well. We're not gonna pretend there isn't. He has, at deck creation, choose 3 different directives to add to your deck. As a lightning bolt, you can flip a directive asset face down, ignoring its permanent keyword, limit once per game. And as another side effect, choose a directive asset. You may ignore its regulation ability this round. Sorry, I can't speak English. He has deck size of 30, Guardian 0 to 3, Insight 0 to 3, Tactics 0 to 3, and Neutral 0 to 5. And you also begin the game with 5 additional experience. Let's go! So, while this guy has a lot of cards, he does not have the same complexity in terms of trying to understand what is going on as Parallel Jim Culver. While, like, this guy has more, I think he has more cards than Parallel Jim, he's actually, like, the gameplay loop is much, the mechanical load is much easier when it comes to actually playing the game. However, with that said, I'm going to put the negative first here. There's a lot to keep track of there's a lot going on, a lot to keep track of when playing this Investigators, and this comes into the case with the directives. So each directive gives you a positive and a negative. So that's why you can, at one point in the game, flip a directive asset face down, ignoring its permanent keyword. So, for example, top left, you cannot voluntarily assign damage or horror to ally assets, but you have 1 additional ally slot. The next one, you cannot move more than twice each round, but you get +3 sanity. Directive red tape down in the bottom left, you cannot play more than 2 cards each round, but when you play an insight or tactic event, you can exhaust this directive to give that event fast. You cannot fight more than twice each round, but during a skill test while investigating, evading, or parlaying, exhaust the directive. You get +2 value for this test for each enemy engaged with you. And then we have the Seek the Truth, which is while you have 1 or more clues, you cannot commit cards to skill tests unless you have discovered a clue this round. While your location has 1 or more clues, sorry. And after you discover a clue, if an enemy is at your location, you can exhaust this directive to draw a card. So that's kind of one of those things that there's a lot of rules you need to make sure you don't break. So that's where the complexity for this Investigator comes in, where I think that, like, while Parallel Jim is more complex, this one is, like, more complex on the gameplay loop. I actually think that Parallel Jim plays relatively simply in terms of, like, keeping track or, like, knowing what to do, but there's a lot of load to understanding Parallel Jim. Well, this one has less load to understand Roland Panks, but it's going to have a lot more load when you are playing the game, especially if you're playing two-handed solo. So just something to keep in mind. However, let's talk about the positives, because Parallel Roland Panks does have a lot. 1, provides a really fun change to a pretty standard base Investigator. 2, this goes further because you can use the switching parallel fronts and backs, means you could just play regular Roland with a parallel back and just open up your card pool and try to explore it in different ways. In addition, the 3 directives you can choose provide different deck building paths, which is really fun to play with. This is probably the only Parallel Investigator I've only played once, but he still gets a glowing recommendation because I've seen a lot of people do a lot of different things with him, and just that his deck building is so open that it's really fun to see what you can do with it, and that's why he's going to be my number 4. I think you'd have a lot of fun trying this guy out, especially if you like this kind of thing. All right, let's go on to my number 3, which is Parallel Ashcan Pete. So, this guy got 3 positives. There's probably a negative for this one, but I couldn't think of it, to be honest. I just think he's, like, really good. You begin the game with Pete's guitar in play. As a reaction, when a card you own that is attached to a scenario card would be discarded, add it to your hand instead, and then his Elder Sign effect is +1. Choose a card you own attached to a scenario card, you may return the chosen card to your hand. His deck building size is 30. He has Survivor cards 0 to 3, Improvise and Tactics 0 to 4, Neutral 0 to 5, and up to 5 other Guardian cards level 0. Pete's Guitar is a 2-cost asset, but it starts in play, like Duke would if you were playing with Duke. As a lightning bolt, you can exhaust Pete's guitar to choose a non-elite enemy at your location or connecting location. Move that enemy once in a direction of your choice. Then, if there are no enemies at your location, either heal 1 horror or gain 1 resource. His weakness is hard times. Put hard times to play in your threat area. Forced. After you draw 1 or more cards, choose and discard that many cards from your hand, and as a double action, discard hard times. So, you might notice that these signatures are new. These are not advanced signatures, these are replacement signatures. What this means is that there are book investigators that were released, book versions of some investigators that started this replacement signature thing. How replacements work, instead of like advanced, where if you play advanced, you have to play with the advanced versions for both of them, it's like it replaces your weakness. Well, it's a new version of the same weakness, a more advanced version. The replacement one replaces your weakness, exactly as it says on the tin. So this could remove Duke from the deck, remove the Racked by Nightmares, and you can replace them with these cards. However, with that said, replacements you can also include in your deck alongside your original weaknesses and signatures. So you can play with both Pete's guitar and Duke in the game. Notably, though, you need to play with the parallel front in order to get the Pete's guitar into your deck. You can't do regular... No, maybe you can. No, you can. You just don't start with it in play. Yeah, that's how it works. Forgive me for that last one. That was incorrect. But you only get to start with one of the 2 in play. That's how it works. So depending on your front side, regular or parallel determines which one of your 2 assets start in play. I'm pretty sure that's how that works. A big positive, and probably the biggest positive for Parallel Ashcan Pete, is that he is going to be using a lot of cards that have mostly been unused by investigators before this. The cards that attach to scenario cards is a cool mechanic that never really had a home. And now with Parallel Ashcan Pete, there is a home, which makes him like that much more of a reason to print this guy. But I think for me personally, as the Spike gamer that I am, the reason why I like Parallel Ashcan Pete this much is because his guitar is an absolutely killer card that is fun to play with. It's very powerful. It's very powerful. It's very powerful. All right, let's go on to our number 2, who is none other than Parallel Skids O'Toole. Yes, I love this guy. He's one of my favorite investigators. He's my actually number 2 favorite investigator. We just did our top investigator lists last week. So I love this guy. Skids O'Toole, 2/3/3/4 is a lightning bolt. Spend up to 3 resources. Test a base skill value of 3 against a difficulty equal to the amount of resources just spent. If you succeed, gain twice that many of spent resources, and only foot and wild skill icons may be committed to this test limit once per round. His Elder Sign effect is very powerful, which is +1, choose a level 2 or less card in your discard pile and add the chosen card to your hand. His deck size is 25. His deck building is Rogue 0 to 5, Fortune 0 to 3, Gambit 0 to 3, and Neutral 0 to 5. And he has additional options when you upgrade a Fortune or Gambit card. You may instead pay the full experience cost of the higher level version and leave the lower level version in your deck. It does not count towards the number of copies of that card in your deck. So, Parallel Skids is a very, very, very fun ability. It's also quite powerful because there's a number of things you can do with a test at 0, which kind of really just pops that guy like wide open in certain ways that you can kind of just do gross things with. But ultimately, the thing that makes Skids O'Toole really fun is that it's very easy to just start accruing a lot of value and just become like absolutely rich with resources and being able to have like a testless, well, not a testless, an actionless drip of economy every turn, which is really good. So I think he's one of the best big money investigators that you can have in the game because his ability just says, hey, we're going to get you some money, but you also going to get like value out of it because of the skill cards you're committing. He plays with exceptional cards very well in most of his builds. This is because of his deck size of 25. If you play a card like Underworld Support, I'm pretty sure that's the permanent that reduces your deck size, but you can only have singular copies of cards. It pretty much guarantees that you're going to like hit what you want. If it doesn't, I mean, guarantee is the wrong word for it because it doesn't guarantee, but it makes the odds really high. So like that's a really nice thing about him. However, I mean, then also like, sorry, not the however, also like the upgrading and getting like 6 luckies in your deck also seems like a pretty good time. So like there's a lot of the fun stuff you can do with that. However, Now we're going to get to the however. However, he's not the best choice if you have a risk-adverse playstyle. You need to be gambling every turn, like pretty much you want to be gambling every turn. So if you're not one to want to take risks, if you don't like taking risks like that, it's probably not the path for you to take. And maybe this guy bumps back 3 points on this list. But if you do, if you're like me and you want to take some risks, Parallel Skids O'Toole is a great, great time. All right, on to our number one, and you should know, if you know the Parallel Investigators, you know who our number one is, and that is Parallel Agnes Baker. Parallel Agnes Baker, 5223. As additional cost to play a spell event, you may take 1 damage. If you do, reduce the cost to play that event by 2, and you may shuffle that event back into your deck instead of discarding it. Her Elder Sun effect is +1. You may heal 1 damage. Her deck building size is 25, like Parallel Skids. Mystic cards 0 to 5, spell cards 0 to 3, occult cards 0 to 3, and neutral cards 0 to 5. And then she also, like Skids, when you upgrade a spell card, you may instead pay the full experience cost of the higher level version and leave the lower level version in your deck. It does not count towards your deck size or the number of copies of that card in your deck. I gotta try this with the new Read the Signs and Spectral Razor from Hemlock for sure. So, the nice thing about Parallel Agnes Baker and why she was my easy number one, she was the one I knew was going to be number one before I even started, like as soon as I conceptualized this list, I was like, Agnes Baker is going to be my most recommended. And the reason for that is that she provides a different Mystic experience that is a blast to play. She was like the first incredibly viable spell slinger. And the reason for this is because she can reduce the cost, which is huge. She can get that card back into her deck so she can see it again, and that is just like one of those things where she's never going to run out of resources in both cards and this because of that. So she's very, very powerful, a very, very powerful investigator to play. I like also that she is a flip of regular Agnes. She literally actually feels like a parallel version of regular Agnes, which I think is like a huge success for the design. I think she's like the most elegant like flavor design of all of the Parallel Investigators. She's also only going to get better over time. Anytime a new spell event is released, she is going to improve. There's that new card that just came out on Hemlock Vale. I don't know the name of the card because I haven't internalized it yet, but it's the one of the woman sucking the life energy out of the guy in the bed, which sounds inappropriate, but it's actually not. So that card is a brain test, and I think it costs 2. And if you succeed, you move a damage from yourself onto the attacked enemy, or 2 damage if the enemy is non-elite. That's a new card that Agnes Baker just got, and it's a very good card for Parallel Agnes Baker. This is what I mean by that she is only going to get better over time. Anytime a new spell event is released for the game, she just becomes stronger. And she's just going to keep getting stronger. It's inevitable. She's going to just get super duper strong. In addition, anytime a spell gets an upgrade, she's going to get stronger too, as is the case with the new Spectral Razor and Read the Signs. She's just going to get stronger and stronger, so she's worth it in a spot in your collection because of that. In addition, she's also another very fun investigator to mix the fronts and the backs, just to kind of like explore and do all that. However, even if you don't, and just play her as like on the tin regular Parallel Agnes Baker, she is still very powerful. And that's why Parallel Agnes Baker gets my number 1 point, because she's fun, but she's also very good, which is like the perfect combination of everything. She also has a lot of elaborate builds you can do with her as well. I think she literally hits every game type archetype for that, so she's really good. And with that, that is the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Again, these are just my opinions. Feel free to follow your own list or go check out somebody else's. But this is if I had to recommend the ones you should play if you were only going to print 1, 2, or 3. Look at this list, go through all this, but I think no matter what, you should do Parallel Agnes Baker. She's a very good Parallel Investigator. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. Huge thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel. In the meantime, have a good one. Thanks for watching, and as always, GG's.